Well, Razorback fans, you officially started off 1-0 with a big win over Alabama A&M on Saturday. What did it mean? What stood out? Well, let's just talk about it all on today's Locked On Razorbacks podcast.
You are Locked On Razorbacks, your daily podcast on the Arkansas Razorbacks. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome into Locked On Razorbacks podcast. I am your host, John Nabors. I am also the host of Inside Arkansas Live, which you can catch every weekday starting at noon on Inside Arkansas and InsideArkansas.com. Today's episode is brought to you by Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONCollege for $20 off your first purchase. Hope everybody had a wonderful long weekend with Labor Day weekend and everything that's gone along with it. College football is back, and the Razorbacks are 1-0, so we're going to talk a little bit about that. We'll also get into one of the things that Sam Pittman talked about in his press conference yesterday, dealing with the upcoming game of Arkansas and Arkansas State. And we'll also look around the SEC and seeing exactly what these other teams are doing and how Arkansas stacks up with the rest of them. But I wanted to begin today's podcast since, there was Labor Day and, the game happened a few days ago now, but Arkansas getting the victory over Alabama A&M by a final score of 52-7. Now, we're going to go through just a few things on this and looking at some of the stats, but nothing too intense, nothing too insane, and nothing that nobody can't handle. Let's just be honest about it. But it was overall a good game. Arkansas won handedly. They covered the spread, which, let's be honest, that's usually one of the biggest things that people care about, and I know certainly that I care about, but when it came to the overall stats and everything, Arkansas took care of business. They had 552 total yards. They had 194 yards on the ground and 358 yards passing. Arkansas went 5 for 5 in the red zone, which we always talked about how big that was. Red zone points being 35, so they scored 5 touchdowns in all of their red zone trips. They were 9 of 14 on third down, only had 3 penalties for 20 yards. They controlled the time of possession at 33 and a half minutes roughly. They were just able to take care of business, truly take care of business. 7 passing touchdowns for this game. And, the biggest thing that you would have to mention, of course, we'd be remiss if not mentioning it, was Taylen Green. That was one of the players that I talked about last week on the podcast. It's like, all right, I want to see you actually take that next step. We always hear about the Bobby Petrino angle of, you got to take the next step, or they're taking the next step. And you look at what he's done so far because he's got a year 2. Like, what does that look like? Well, it got off to a good start. And again, folks, I know it's Alabama A&M. I know Arkansas is supposed to take care of business about this, but you still want to see it. You still want to see the sheer domination there. Taylen Green goes 24 of 31 for 322 yards and 6 touchdown passes. 6 touchdown passes. That's the most touchdown passes that anyone's had since Brandon Allen threw 7 touchdown passes roughly 10 years ago, a decade ago. But it was hard to have a better game than what Taylen Green had. 77% completion percentage. He had no turnovers, which we know is always very important. Spread the ball around a lot. Omega Blake had 7 catches, 121 yards, and a touchdown. C.J. Brown, 4 catches with 2 touchdowns for 49 yards. Jalen Brown, 3 catches, 44 yards, and a touchdown. Raylan Sharp, 3 catches, 41 yards, and a touchdown. Mike Washington also caught a pass out of the backfield for a touchdown as well. He had 2 catches. Cam Shanks had 2 catches. Monty Harrison even got involved, a 29-yard reception. Jaden Platt, 15 yards. Andreas Poski was another guy who just caught 1 pass, was targeted 1 time, and it was a touchdown. So the point is, you had a lot of different love getting spread from the passing game. Even KJ Jackson got to come into the game. Goes 2 for 4 with a touchdown. Was able to throw a touchdown there late in the game. So the passing game was awesome. And the rushing attack for Arkansas, I'm not going to sit here and immediately condemn the rushing game and saying it's bad. I would have liked to have seen more. That's how I'll put it. I would have liked to have seen more than what we actually ended up getting. But still, Mike Washington has 9 carries for 79 yards. It's 8.8 yards a carry, but just never really got to see all of that playmaking ability that we were hoping for. Braylon Russell gets in on the action. 11 carries for 41 yards for him. Taylen Green had 9 carries for 41 yards there as well. And KJ Jackson had 2 carries for 15 yards. So a lot of it was done by the quarterbacks, but not much else. And that was pretty much it. So again, it was about the offense. It was about the offense and how good they looked. They looked crisp. The first team, again, looking about as good as you could ask. And honestly, too, the special teams was pretty much perfect. I think that, of course, Devin Bell, you knew what you were going to get. But how about Scott Starzik, the absolute true freshman kicker that Arkansas has? First kick as a Razorback, nails a 53-yarder. And it might have been good from 60. Like that was, I don't care if it was no pressure or not. I don't care the team it was against, folks. You still got to make it. And for a true freshman kicker to come in and be like, all right, buddy, your very first kick is a 53-yarder and you just absolutely nail it. That's a great sign. I've always said that if you're a freshman kicker at Arkansas, and the ones that they've had that have been the best kickers at Arkansas, if you're good your freshman year, you're going to be good the rest of the time. Cam Little was that way. Connor Limpert was that way. Zach Hawker was that way. So I think we're in hopefully for a good treat for Scott Starzik and being able to count on him. But that was the offense, and the offense and special teams played about as good as you could ask. But the defense was the biggest question mark. I mean, I've talked about on this podcast how worried I've been about the passing or the rush, getting after the quarterback, the rushing the quarterback, and putting pressure on him and being able to get sacks and everything. Well, Arkansas did have 2 sacks in this game. One of them by Shakur Smalls, whichever works. Tackle for us. He also had a forced fumble there. But the other sack was by Quincy Rhodes, which was really nice to see on the defensive line. But that was it. That was it. You had a total of 8 QB hurries, which is all right. Phillip Lee was the one that had the most with 3. So you just, that first drive, I'll admit, and Sam Pittman even talked about this after the game, that first drive was awful. And it was about as horrible of a first drive as you could have. And that was the only points that Alabama A&M scored. But, man, they sliced and diced you. But then Arkansas settled in a little bit more. I did not get anything from the defense that made me feel any bit differently than what I was feeling at the time before the season even started. I kept feeling like this was going to be a defensive front that was going to struggle. This was going to be a team that was not going to be able to get after the quarterback and is going to be bend, not break. And so even when they settled in a little bit more, I still don't feel any better about it. You're going to be facing some really good teams and against some really good quarterbacks. And this is just, something that you're hopeful that it can get better. You're hopeful that everything will go okay. But until we actually see it in action, I'm not going to believe in it. I'm not going to feel great about it. But listen, you gave up 7 points to the opening drive and they didn't score again. You didn't have any major penalties. You didn't have any major issues. You didn't have any major injuries. Overall, the success of this particular game, I would give it an A-, a B+, A-. If it wasn't for that poor opening drive by the defense and some other problems with the defense, it probably would have been an A+. But you did some good things, and you took care of business against a bad team like you were supposed to. And of the 12 games you got, you're 1-0. You've won the first one. You got to start somewhere. You got to win the first one. I thought the crowd was really good. I thought that, it was brought up that they had over 70,000 people there, and which was up for debate on people. People were like, oh, no, there's no way. I'm not saying that it was actually 70,000, but it was more packed than I thought it would be, truly. The weather was perfect, and I say that. It got warm, but comparatively speaking to what normal late August temperatures are for Arkansas, it was about as great as you could ask. So I was fine with the weather. The attendance, again, was great for the most part. So shout out to all the Razorback fans that showed up. And it was just a great atmosphere. It was a great time. Enjoyed it. I enjoyed seeing some of the new players and getting a chance to see what they're capable of. I'll also say, too, that there was some new things around the stadium and the atmosphere and the environment that I was really appreciative of. I thought some of the music choices were good. We'll see about that, the halftime shows and all that stuff, whatever. Because it doesn't matter. It's all about the presentation because it's the very first game of the season. But the big thing that sucks, and we all know this was going to be the case, but the thing that sucks the most about it is now we got to wait a T-minus month, pretty much, until our next game in Fayetteville. You go to Little Rock this weekend, then you go to Oxford the next weekend, then you go to Memphis the next weekend, and then you finally get Notre Dame at home at 11 a.m. in the final Saturday of September. So this is going to be a gauntlet. You could say that the next 3 games, especially away from Fayetteville, are without question the make or break games. You got to win 2 of these next 3. You have to. Because if you're 2-2 going into Notre Dame, and I know we'll talk about some of the games that happened over the weekend and look at it from the lens of Arkansas and how good we may or may not feel about it. But overall, if you're 2-2 going into that Notre Dame game, it's just gonna be tough. It's gonna be tough to really look ahead and say, oh yeah, we got a bowl game in the bag. It's gonna happen. But you got to be 3-1. I think that's the goal. I obviously would much rather beat Ole Miss than Memphis in a weird way, just because you want to have that good SEC record and you want to beat SEC teams. That would go a lot further. But at the same time, I know what will happen is that if you beat Ole Miss, then I'm going to be expecting, just like all of you, to beat Memphis. And if you don't, it's going to be a pretty big disappointment. So maybe that's the way it's got to be. Maybe just go 3-1 or 4-0. Now, you either lose to Ole Miss or you don't lose at all over the next 3 games. But they're going to be crucial. They're going to be important. And it's going to start with the next one, Arkansas State down in Little Rock, historical game. Sam Pittman had some interesting comments to say about it, and we're going to talk about it next. So just stay with us here on the Locked On Razorbacks podcast. All right, Razorback fans, I got a quick question for all of you out there. If you could go back in time and sit front row at your school's biggest rivalry game, what hat would you be wearing? Yes, I said hat, the hat. Well, for me, it'd be the game. You know, the game. See this hat right here? Right there in your screen? Isn't that awesome? That's a sweet logo. That's the game hat right there. Those aren't just hats, man. Like, they're the same vintage styles that fans wore back in the 80s and the 90s. Because as you can say, you're like, God, that's vintage. And guess what? They still go for the same price that they did back when you bought them, back in the 90s. We remember what the 90s were about. Arkansas basketball winning a national championship. We all love our vintage stuff. When you use code LOCKED ON, you'll get your vintage hat just like that one for $16.99. $16.99. Just head to thegamecaps.com, and grab your team's classic bar or retro circle design and use code LOCKED ON for an exclusive discount, because legends wear the game. Also here to talk to you about our friends over at Game Time. We know college football is officially back, and none of us could be more excited than, well, college football being back, let's be honest. The tailgates, the rivalries, the energy in the stands, there's nothing like it. But actually getting tickets can be a little bit more of a chore. It's more of a battle than the game itself in some cases. Endless queues, hidden fees, prices jumping at checkout. That's why I use Game Time, the app that gives the advantage back to all you fans. It's the easiest way to score last-minute tickets at the best prices with no surprise fees. What you see is what you pay. Anytime that you pull up Game Time, you just do a couple taps and boom, you'll see all the amazing deals that they have to offer. Talking about your favorite college football games with their prices as low as $25. They have zone deals too. You pick the section, Game Time picks the seats, and you get to save big time money. So take the guesswork out of buying college football tickets with Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONCollege for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, that's promo code LOCKEDONCOLLEGE for $20 off. Swipe, tap, ticket, go. Download Game Time today. All right, so moving on into the next segment of the Locked On Razorbacks podcast. Okay, so we know about Arkansas and Arkansas State. It's happening. First time like ever. It's happening this weekend in Little Rock. 4 o'clock, I believe, is when the opening kickoff is. And man, this is just so funny in a way of someone like me or anybody in the media that's been covering the Razorbacks for a long period of time. The 2 biggest debates that would happen nonstop on the old message boards back on woopig.net, or whatever, was the great stadium debate in Arkansas versus Arkansas State. It was always about, should Arkansas play in Little Rock at War Memorial anymore, or should they play Arkansas State? Well, goody for us, we get the clashing of both worlds all in the same time. We get the final game in Little Rock at War Memorial Stadium. At least that's how I feel. And it happens to be against the Arkansas State Red Wolves. Crazy that this is happening. Crazy that this has happened. And as you've heard me say, I believe this is going to be the only one time that Arkansas and Arkansas State play each other in football, and the very last time that Arkansas will play at War Memorial Stadium moving forward. That's just how I feel. If I'm wrong, I'm wrong, but that's just the way that it certainly feels like it's going to set up. Well, Sam Pittman was asked about this, and here's the deal. Before I get to the clip, I've said this on the show before, and I want to say it again. I do give a lot of credit and praise to Sam Pittman when it comes to his honesty. Sometimes you don't want him to be so honest, but he will always give you a very honest answer. And I think that is commendable. But sometimes, you don't maybe need to, but it's commendable for him to be able to say something to the extent of like what he has been saying about a lot of different topics. And this particular game is one of them. So here he was talking with the media yesterday and what he had to say about this particular game and being in a Little Rock. And is there any advantage for the Razorbacks playing down there at War Memorial Stadium?
I don't know that there's any advantage for us, in all honesty, to go to Little Rock and play Arkansas State. It's closer for them. It's like when we used to go over there and play Mississippi State. It's closer for them. I just don't know that there's going to be 20, 30,000 people less, but from what I understand, it hadn't been packed since I've been a head coach, and hopefully this one is, and it's as loud as Peyton Manning says it is over there. We sure would like that to be the case, but future-wise, I don't really have a lot of say-so in that. The games have been over there. History, I still think history of the power of the Hogs in our state is a bunch of it is because we would take the team over to Little Rock. And, there were certainly different times then, less hotels, less television, where the Hogs could go over there and people could drive up and see the Hogs play and turn around and go home. Obviously, it didn't work out so much, driving from Northwest Arkansas over there, but they could still do it. Obviously, the stadium was much better than the one we had here in those days. So there's a lot of things have changed. Television has changed. Guys, it's changed everything in college football. So I don't know what the advantage of it is going over there, except for the passion of the state for the Hogs. And going over there, I think, certainly continues that in the state of Arkansas.
Okay, that was Sam Pittman speaking about this particular game down there at War Memorial Stadium. Every single thing that he said, I agree with, and I have agreed with. I'm not trying to turn this into the great stadium debate and stuff that you've all heard ad nauseum and probably sick and tired of hearing. But I think it's important for it to be really spoken about this week because, again, the two worlds are colliding. The two biggest debates that ever happened in Razorback football, really, when it came to sports talk radio or anything like that, has been these two things. It's just time. It's just time. This isn't anything personal against War Memorial Stadium. It's not anything personal against playing Arkansas State. It's just when you are the University of Arkansas Razorbacks, you are an SEC team, you are the biggest game in town in this state. Nobody comes close. Not Arkansas State, not UCA, no one. That's not to say that they don't have fans. That's not to say that there aren't people that root for them. But this is the Arkansas Razorbacks. That's it. And when it comes to you and your decisions that you make, especially nowadays when it comes to finances and all those things, every single decision that you make needs to be for your benefit. There's some things that you can't help. Can't help if you get a crappy schedule from the SEC. Just what happens. But what you can do is you can help yourself when it comes to your own scheduling. Schedule the easiest teams you can, that you can get away with for the cheapest price, and play as many games as humanly possible at home in Fayetteville. I think it's stupid you're playing at Memphis this year. I've said that many times. And I also think it's stupid you're playing Arkansas State War Memorial Stadium. I get it, though. I know why. You had to have that amendment signed to where that Missouri game was moved out of Little Rock, and you had to make up for it in some capacity, and this is it. But I also have it on good authority, folks, that the SEC told Arkansas to no longer play games at War Memorial. It wasn't just we're going to screw the Little Rock people over, the Central Arkansas people over, or anything like that, even though some may take it that way. But from my understanding is that the SEC, the league, said, stop playing there. And once your contract is up, which is the final game here, stop. And that's not Arkansas talking. That's not some big donor talk. That's the SEC that gives you all your money, essentially. So you kind of have to listen to it. But I appreciate Sam Pittman for being honest about it. There is no advantage to this game for Arkansas. All the pressure's on Arkansas. There's no pressure on A-State. If A-State loses, they're supposed to. And, if I'll just be honest. If Sam Pittman and Arkansas lost this game, I don't think they will. But if they did, Sam Pittman does not need to be the coach leaving that stadium for the University of Arkansas Razorbacks. That's how strongly I feel about it. So, either way, last game, best game, right? Should be a good crowd at least. At least I'm hopeful for that. We'll look around the SEC and where Arkansas stacks up with the rest of these teams in a second. So stay with us here on the Locked On Razorbacks podcast. All right, all you guys out there, you Razorback guys, you've probably heard of Viagra or Cialis. Maybe you've even tried them. But if you're looking for something beyond the usual pill, it's time to meet Rougiet Ready. Rougiet Ready is the next-gen prescription treatment designed to amplify the arousal in the brain and boost blood flow. Unlike the usual pills that can take hours, Rougiet's 3-in-1 formula dissolves under your tongue and kicks in fast, on average, about 15 minutes. Effects can last up to 36 hours, so you can stay confident and in control when the moment is right. If the traditional options have not worked, Rougiet might be the right answer for you. Over 150,000 men have already made the switch. And the fact that it's done completely online, Rougiet connects you with a board-certified doctor and treats and gives you your shipment of your treatments discreetly to your front door. So head to Rougiet.com/LockedOnCollege and use code LockedOnCollege for 15% off today. That's RUGIET.com/LockedOnCollege and use promo code LockedOnCollege for 15% off. Individual results may vary with prescription treatment. Compounded drugs are permitted to be prescribed under federal law, but are not FDA approved and do not undergo FDA safety, effectiveness, or manufacturing review. Please visit the Rougiet website for full safety information. All right, so final segment here on the Locked On Razorbacks podcast. It was a great day, great weekend of college football. And I know a lot of us watched it, not just the Razorback side of things, but a lot of these other teams that were playing and some of the most interesting and fascinating games around. And to me, again, we could sit here and talk about some of the big games nationally, but let's be honest, Notre Dame is a team that lost over the weekend to Miami. Now, Miami's a good team, don't get me wrong, but I think that Notre Dame showed some vulnerabilities. Can they get it corrected by the time Arkansas plays them? Of course they can. They probably will. So I'm not going to say that Arkansas can suddenly win, but you can at least see, based off one game, some of the weaknesses there that could be had. But Auburn looks better than what maybe we all thought. That's going to be a much tougher game than maybe what people thought, because they beat Baylor on the road 38-24. So not to say Baylor's just some great team, but that's still, anytime you win on the road in a season opener against a Power 4 team, that's pretty big time. So Auburn looks good, still beatable, but looks good. Texas, 14-7, lost to Ohio State. I thought Ohio State was going to cream them, but that's okay. Texas still lost. Arch Manning didn't look great, and everyone's freaking out about it. Listen, I was the big person that was like, hey, everyone needs to chill about Arch Manning. But now I feel like I'm the Arch Manning defender. I was like, okay, but he went on the road to Ohio State in his first official start as the starter, and the defending champs, and lost by a touchdown. Like, I'm not saying he's going to be the greatest thing ever, but I also don't think like you go from him being great to all this guy's trash in one game against the defending champs on the road. Just not seeing it that way. But yeah, so Texas loses that one. LSU gets by against Clemson 17-10. Big win for them. Their defense looks really good, really good. Nussmeier is fine, but their defense looks really solid, so they're definitely going to be a problem there. How about Bama losing to Florida State? Boy, things are going bad for Bama over there. Bama fans, they're pretty pissed off, understandably so. Texas A&M beats UTSA 42-24. Not exactly great. Beatable for sure. Ole Miss smokes Georgia State 63-7. Tennessee beats Syracuse 45-26. Now, again, Tennessee looks beatable. Very beatable. Good team, but looks very beatable. Mississippi State beats Southern Miss 34-17. Still think you should win that game. And that kind of sums up all of Arkansas's teams that they're going to be playing this year. So how about that? I don't feel any different about, other than maybe Auburn a little bit. That'd be pretty much it. Maybe a little bit about Texas, but still, they played Ohio State on the road, so I'm not going to have anything to say about that. Either way, still got some games in front of you. Just keep taking care of business the way you're supposed to, and you'll be just fine the rest of the way. Appreciate each and every one of you listening in and watching into the Locked On Razorbacks podcast. Be sure to like and subscribe to the podcast on iTunes or on Google Play. You can also get after me on Twitter at John Nabors Show for any questions, comments, concerns that you may have. We'll keep it going from there. Same podcast time, same podcast channel tomorrow afternoon. Have a great day, everybody. We'll see you then.